It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. Not that you should be reminded over this beautiful time. It's Heritage Month, and I think many parents and teachers are asking the same thing. How do we tell tough history to our beautiful children who we love and care without scaring them? They need to know. This morning, we are slowing things down and learning how to start those conversations with care. And joining us is the perfect person who does this every day, Mandy Sanger, Head of Education at the incredible District 6 Museum. Just go there if you want to start the conversation. Now, she has spent years inside classrooms helping children face truth without fear. This might be our roadmap. Together, we are going to explore how tone, how timing and trust can help us, can help me name the past without wounding the present. Thank you for framing it so beautifully. And thank you for being you, Mandy. We've encountered each other in a few spaces, often having to have difficult conversations.
Exactly.
It's difficult to know where to jump off from. So I'm going to use District 6 because so much coalesces in that space with the people who have lived through that truth. How do I talk to that truth without planting shame? If my child, if any child asks me, where do I start?
I think, first of all, to understand that we are a wounded country.
Yes.
And I think I usually start my work, especially with young children, for them to understand that we're all in a space of woundedness. Doesn't matter what, position you come from in the past.
There is trauma there, yeah.
And it's very important for them to understand that the apartheid system was a system that was unfair. So rather than focus on identity, focus on how unfair it was. And so I think for me, that's always the first
We're
point.
naming the scenario, not the person.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah. I think at some point we have to talk about the people. We have to talk about the fact that people were classified in certain ways, and certain classifications gave you access to power, to open up business. But I think it's important to not just speak about it and to demonstrate, to illustrate. And when I talk about demonstrate, I don't mean reenact.
Okay.
We've seen how vicious that can be when people reenact.
Because that's often a processing of emotional trauma in itself.
Yeah.
Where often the beast has to come out for that to happen. But this is not what we are trying to achieve in this space.
Yeah.
That gives me a perfect lead into, because we don't want to turn people, it's very easy to personify, for us to put all of our baggage onto one thing if we mention good people or bad people. I talk a lot about not wanting to harden my children too soon, because the softness of childhood doesn't last very long these days. How do we frame it then without polarizing like that?
I think, first of all, to focus on belief systems, to focus on, how people can change. Human beings have a great capacity to reimagine themselves. And so it's important to illustrate where else in the world and where in history have people demonstrated that they're able to change. So we see, I think it's very dangerous to talk just about victims and perpetrators, because then we freeze these identities.
And then you stay as a victim without
perpetually.
action. Yes.
And that becomes very dangerous when people get into power with the mentality that they have been victims of history and trauma, because then their actions against others become self-righteous. And
fully justified in their own mind because of that.
Yeah.
And we can understand that, because you look at the level of trauma and you feel like, okay, you are justified in anything that you're doing because of what that is set against. But you've got two narratives here. You've got a shared history, which displays, and luckily, if you want examples, you can just look around, look out your car window, you can understand those differences very easily. But then you've got the family history. What happens when history and family culture don't match? Because you don't want to shake a person's core system, but they do need to understand. How do you walk that line?
Well, at the District 6 Museum, we believe in multiple narratives. We believe in conversation rather than this idea that there's a single truth. I think when you're dealing with, the truth that leaf is green, I'm talking about something slightly different. I think so we need to build the capacity of people to have conversations about different perceptions of the past. And we need to start with that at a very young age. So we do a lot of that. We create games for people to share different positions, for people to to adopt different.
Put
So
myself
you
in
tell me your
shoes.
story,
Yes.
and I perform your role. And so role play is very powerful in people understanding that we can live with difference. It's vitally important.
I think of like being taken to plays at the Athol Fugard Museum.
Yeah.
As a young person, you get it. You can feel it through the
Yeah.
emotion. As I say this, I try to use the description, you earn the right to be able to talk about certain things. As a 46-year-old white man who's almost 47 in this country right now, as much as I see myself one way, every person that I sit down with is going to come with their own baggage and their own lens. I'm very clear, certain things I say will trigger people. A teacher, even more so. What are the words that we avoid? What are the words we lean into in a classroom specifically with those young, very kind of molded or moldable minds?
Yeah, I think we have to avoid any word that apportions blame on young kids. It's important for young kids to understand that, they have a voice. And so it's about using words that don't apportion blame, don't apportion shame, words that are positive. So talk about resistance rather than victimhood.
Yeah.
That talk about how unfair the system is. And I'm talking about with young children. Obviously, at university level, you have to
You can
expose
get
people
very nuanced,
to more
yeah.
nuanced words. And
But that being said, I feel that shift. If I'm on a stage with Dr. Ramagopa talking about energy, suddenly challenges from 5 years ago now are spoken about as opportunities. When you reframe in the right way with a young person, their script changes completely.
Yeah.
The bottom line is we have a responsibility to take ourselves there. And I think a big part of this is we don't often want to go and embrace because we apportion judgment, blame, shame ourselves. So maybe the mirror needs to come up before we start preaching. I love the journey we are on. Mandy is not going anywhere. We are having tough conversations about very, very raw things with care.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. I know it can be very tough gristle to chew on, but it's essential that every South African understands how to do this. And we've got the amazing Mandy Sanger from the District 6 Museum who educates the educators, and we owe her a debt of gratitude. This morning, we have put it to her, broaching difficult history, those conversations with care. How do we get that right? And we're going to ask how to build the emotions to prop that up, to bring up these conversations, and how we as parents and teachers can hold that mirror up to ourselves to be the custodians of this conversation. It's difficult for me to do it in my limited educational capacity, to keep my own baggage and my own journey out of it. How do you as a teacher get that right? And I suppose you are teaching a lot of the time with a lot of your own baggage.
exactly.
How do you self-regulate in these spaces?
Well, the important thing is to separate your kind of political ambitions or struggles from the role and purpose of teaching. So I come from a resistance to apartheid background. So I'm always in danger of turning the classroom into
Every
a
conversation
political...
I have is that, yeah.
Yeah, to feed my political kind of gains. And to recognize that we have multiple identities, At the same time as we're a teacher, we also a citizen of a country engaged in current struggles. And so that can often trigger teachers who don't recognize the difference. And I think we have to be very careful. So for me, the classroom, when I'm participating in education processes, I'm not politically mobilizing. That doesn't mean that politics is not linked
I like the
to
word
it.
you used, political ambitions.
Yeah.
Or challenges or past. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Can I flip the script though? Because it's that purpose-driven element, that emotion that's driving the best teachers. Why they feel it's so critical to have those conversations, it's because of the anger that they feel at the way it was.
Yeah.
That's what drove me to make the biggest choices and right choices in my life and shape myself, that anger, because I got that from my mama. I want to feed that or honor that because it's real, but I don't want it to trigger or cage the young person. How do you honor anger, the right kind of emotion in an adolescent?
You first affirm the fact that young people feel things. And it's important to do what is called pre-activities before going into the depths. So just getting people used to how, as human beings, we have different emotions. Then secondly, to deal with the hard subject, but to introduce it in various ways using different tools. You can use art. So I do a lot of mapping to show how unfair the system was.
Make it quite practical and visual.
Yes, I use theatre, performance, role play, and I think that allows people to deal with difficult situations by putting themselves in the shoes of others, by having the difficult conversation, but not pointing fingers, because I think that's very important. As they get older, they'll have lots of opportunity to point fingers.
Well, this is the thing, and we unfortunately in South Africa and the world maybe, we apportion blame and we think that's action.
Exactly.
And it's an easy action, it's movement, but we've filled the action vacuum, and there's always an action vacuum with a redundant action. Yes, we understand the anger, we get it, but we need to move forward. We're a package deal, and often the parent and the teacher don't understand where they cross until we've crossed a line. And now parents are asking me, now we went too far. My child came home sad, grappling with stuff that I'm not ready to explain to them yet. How do we walk that line with parents who maybe are still at the same place that their child might be in the processing journey?
Look here, I mean, that's a real danger in our society today. Young kids have very low resilience. So
and access to a lot of information.
Exactly. Anything can trigger their sadness, their anger, their pain. And so I think it's important for parents to understand that they need to continue the type of work that's been done to help young people understand the past and reckon with the past without blaming certain groups as if only those people, like only white people are able to inflict harm. It's important
because
to look
then
at...
therein lies this idea that only within one racial group the answer can be found if they do this or fix this. So beyond taking your teacher and your children in that classroom to the District 6 Museum, to understand this within seconds of walking in, because we need those spaces and a lived experience. If I'm feeling my class is becoming divided by race, by class, by religion, by any element that is normally sacred ground, we don't go there, how do I address that? Do you have any bridge building techniques that you use in your space?
I think empathy is very important, and for people to understand that it's not the person's identity that makes them do harm to others, it's their relationship to power linked to their mentality and the idea that only they deserve. So I think the real bridge of empathy is for people to begin to recognize commonalities as humans.
The bridge
and that
of
doesn't
empathy,
and that doesn't mean that we must therefore it's not about making white people feel nice. It's not about making white people feel comfortable. It's about rather saying that this is a conversation for all of us to have, and particularly for young people to think about the future and not get stuck in the past.
Oh, completely.
So we have to reckon with the past, but not stuck.
But I like the way you framed that, because this must be an ugly, hard conversation for everybody.
Everyone.
No one's going to feel better about going back there. Everyone will feel better about moving forward with an understanding of that. But you cannot move forward unless we do understand. I love it. On the 24th of September, you can get free entrance. Everything that Mandy has spoken about is exemplified in the District 6 Museum through the lives of people who have lived this truth and proven that we can do these things, set against challenges that you would not be able to wrap your head around if you did not see people in that lived experience. Get to the District 6 Museum, please. And it also shows us the best of who we are. And I think that's the most important thing. It's not just about embracing the ugly stuff, the hard truths, but you get to relive the best of who we are as South Africans. That's what Heritage Month is all about.